We'll call to order the City of Douglasville City Council Legislative Work Session for today, which is Thursday, May the 3rd. And we will have our invocation that will be led by Senior Pastor Tim Aiken of the First Baptist Church of Douglasville. And after that, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the Mayor Pro Tem Richard Siegel. So, Pastor Aiken, if you please come forward and welcome. Welcome to the community. Please stand for the invocation.
All right, let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this great state. We thank you for our great city, the city of Douglasville. And Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have as citizens to gather here tonight. Lord, I pray that you would, Lord, bless this meeting. I pray there would be unity in this meeting. I pray, Father, that you would continue to strengthen our community to be a place that is safe, a place that is great for raising our children. I pray that you'd continue to bless our education system. Lord, I pray tonight that you would give our leaders here, our mayor and our councilmen, our councilwomen, that you give them great wisdom and great discernment, that you give them great knowledge, give them favor with our communities as they think through some serious decisions, as there's discussion here tonight. Lord, may we all have the same desire, may we all have the same goals, and that is to see Douglasville continue to prosper and to thrive and be a wonderful place for each and every one of us. And Father, we thank you that we can come here tonight and be part of this meeting. We pray all these things in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem and Pastor Aiken. We appreciate you coming, giving us the invocation. Before we start the meeting, we will have announcements and presentations. And I have a presentation of a proclamation to the city clerks declaring May 6, 2018 through May 12, 2018 as Municipal Clerks Week in the city of Douglasville. And it reads, whereas the office of Municipal Clerk is a time-honored and vital part of local government exists throughout the world. Whereas the office of Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, the office of Municipal Clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at all levels. Whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be and ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the municipal clerk serves as an information center on functions of local government and community, municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the municipal office of municipal clerk. And now, therefore, I, Rochelle Robinson, Mayor of the City of Douglasville, do recognize the week of May 6th through May 12th as Municipal Clerks Week and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerks, Miss Vicki Acker. She has a big star on her head all the time. She's great. And Assistant City Clerk, who is running really close behind her, and at her side, really, Heather Korn, and to all municipal clerks for their vital services they provide and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. So proclaimed this 3rd day of May. Ms. Vicki and Ms. Heather, please come forward with the council. We appreciate you. Let's give them a hand, please. And come around and take a picture. You want to give a speech, Ms. Vicki? Sure. Ms. Heather? You don't want to say anything? No. Okay, council, please come around so you can take a picture. Now there's a presentation, a proclamation representing the representatives from Lupus Matters Corporation proclaiming the month of May 2018 as Lupus Awareness Month in the city of Douglasville. Whereas each year the Lupus Matters Corporation designates May as National Lupus Awareness Month to show support for the estimated 1.5 million Americans who have lupus. Lupus is an unpredictable and misunderstood autoimmune disease that ravages different parts of the body. It is difficult to diagnose, hard to live with, and a challenge to treat. Whereas lupus can affect any part of the body, including the skin, lungs, heart, kidney, and brains, no organ is spared. The disease can cause seizures, strokes, heart attacks, miscarriage, and organ failure. Whereas lupus can be particularly difficult to diagnose because the symptoms are similar to those of many other diseases, and major gaps exist in understanding the causes and consequences of lupus. More than half of all people with lupus take 4 or 5 years and visit 3 or more doctors before obtaining a correct diagnosis. Whereas while lupus strikes mostly women of childbearing age, no one is safe from lupus. African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, Asian, and Native Americans are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop lupus, whereas 55,000 citizens diagnosed in Georgia are affected by lupus. Now, therefore, I, Rochelle Robinson, Mayor of the City of Douglasville, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2018 as Lupus Awareness Month in the City of Douglasville, and I encourage citizens to observe this month by educating themselves on the symptoms and the impact of lupus, and to join with the Lupus Matters Corporation in supporting programs of research, raising awareness, donating funds, education, and community service. So proclaimed this 3rd day of May 2018. Are the representatives here for the Lupus Foundation? Please come forward, and if you have anything you'd like to say before the council takes your picture, please come to the podium and give us your name and your address.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Monica Ellis. This is Stephanie Sanchez, and I am the founder of Lupus Matters Corporation. Thank you, Mayor Robinson and the City of Douglasville for recognizing May as Lupus Awareness Month. Lupus Matters Corporation received this proclamation last year, and since then, I have been in the hospital, I've had a blood transfusion, I started chemo, diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and diagnosed with kidney disease. Needless to say, we do need a cure. But I stand before you thankful and well enough to continue being a lupus advocate. I ask that the City of Douglasville and surrounding communities come together and work with Lupus Matters Corporation. I am available to speak at any event to bring lupus to the forefront. We are accepting donations and submission to Lupus Matters magazine, a magazine of stories by lupus survivors. Lupus Matters Corporation will be 1 year old in 7 days, May 10th. Ironically, it is World Lupus Day, so please be mindful that lupus matters. Thank you for the opportunity for me to speak, and God bless everybody.
God bless you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So council, if you please will join me and come around and we'll take a picture. And May 10th, we're supposed to wear purple, is that correct? Okay, so that part we didn't tell citizens if they want to support to wear purple, and if someone asks, why are you wearing purple, then you can educate them on lupus. Thank you.
Squeezing just a little bit tighter, that'd be great. There you go, perfect. All right, big smile. Beautiful.
Wow, well, these announcements and proclamations have varied. It's very serious. So we appreciate the hardworking clerks around the state of Georgia, and of course bringing recognition and awareness to lupus. And now we have something very joyous to celebrate and to read. Whereas on 2018 marks the 60th anniversary of the state of Georgia's premier academic recognition program. It's entitled the Page Star Student and Teacher Program. Whereas the Professional Association of Georgia Educators, PAGE, honors outstanding students and educators and encourages academic excellence through competitive academic initiatives such as Page Star and Page Academic Bowl for middle school grades, and the Page Georgia Academic Decathlon. Whereas 20 Page Star regional winners were finalists in the culminating event of the annual STAR program for high school seniors. The search for the state Page Star student began earlier this school year with the naming of a record-breaking 559 local STAR students from each of the participating public and independent high schools across the state of Georgia. And whereas on Monday, April 23rd, 2018, at the Granite Place, Atlanta in Duluth, Georgia, Douglasville's own Devin Boatwright was named the winner of the 2018 State Page Star Student. Now, therefore, I, Rochelle Robinson, Mayor of the City of Douglasville, do hereby commend Ms. Devin Boatwright on her tremendous academic honor. The council looks forward to seeing great things that she will do in the years to come. And as Devin comes, she and her dad, Dr. Boatwright, I would just like to say that out of 559 students who were chosen across the state, there were only 3 who had a perfect SAT, and Devin has a perfect SAT. Come forward, please. Devin, please come forward and talk to us just a little bit and tell us about your aspirations. Oh, look at Dad. Your aspirations for Georgia Tech, and I know you're in the IB program, and just talk to us a little bit about, and this is Callie Boatwright's daughter. Okay.
So I'm going to Georgia Tech to major in chemical engineering, and I'm really interested in alternative energy, so I want to pursue that in the future, focusing kind of on how it can be implemented in different ways in cities such as Atlanta, and hopefully helping Douglasville as well. I also, sorry, what else did you want me to talk about?
Just whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, well,
when you went to take the SAT, how did you get a perfect score?
I used specific books and just kind of set up my own study plan that I followed and made sure I did all I needed to make get the score that I wanted. And the IB program really benefited me throughout the entire process. It's a wonderful opportunity within this county, and I'm glad that we offer it as an opportunity for students to choose to challenge themselves. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am, very rigorous program. Again, congratulations, and you are the winner. It never has been done in the 60 years that we've had this academic program in the state of Georgia. You're the first person from Douglas County to win, and so we really appreciate that you are the star student for the state of Georgia, representing Douglas County very well. Let's give her another hand, please.
All right, big smile.
Okay, now we will go over our protocol for how the business of the city is going to be run tonight in this legislative work session. I'd like to welcome you again to the City of Douglasville's legislative work session. This is a work session where agenda items are presented for discussion and no official action will be taken tonight. Official action will be taken on these items discussed tonight on Monday, May the 9th. If the business you are here for, the 7th, I apologize. If the business you are here for is not listed as an agenda item, there will be ample time under the agenda item comments, entitled Comments from Citizens and Delegates section for you to discuss your business. There are a few protocol issues I'd like to make you aware of just so that we'll have everything and we'll conduct business in a timely and orderly fashion. I ask that you would keep your comments and presentations on a professional level, dealing with the facts that are important for this governing body to make their decision. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals, and you'll receive a warning from the chair if you deviate from this requirement. A second deviation will result in a request for you to leave the chambers and the premises for the evening. Only one person speaking at a time. Please do not applaud or react to speakers or speak from the audience, cheer, carry on conversations with others in the audience, or disrupt in any way. Just basic manners. I will remind you that we only required to accept public comments during required public hearings, and we're not required to accept public comments on other items before the council if they are not a zoning matter. If you have a cell phone or any kind of electronic device, we ask that you would please put those in silent mode. And this is how each agenda item will be held. Agenda items will be handled as follows. The committee chair will read the agenda item. Then that person representing that agenda item or applicant will make his or her presentation first, and that will be the only opportunity for you to present the information. Then the mayor and members of council will possibly ask questions of the applicant to seek additional information. After that, the committee chair will ask for comments or statements from the audience, and there is a maximum time of 30 minutes for those speaking in favor, 30 minutes for those speaking in opposition to the agenda item. In the applicant's presentations, including this time allotted, each person has 5 minutes to speak. So you have a total of 30 minutes with 5 minutes per person. Prior to approaching the podium, please give us your name and address for the record. There should have been a card that you would have filled out and handed to Ms. Vicki Acker, our city clerk. Each person has one opportunity. This meeting is not a question and answer, a debate format. It's just here for information, for us to gather information to help us make our decisions on these items. So now we will move on with the agenda items as printed. The first agenda item in committee is Public Safety Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor. Yeah.
I know, is your mic on, Councilman?
Authorize the mayor to sign agreement with CSI Mid-Atlantic Inc. doing business as Interpret Atlanta for language interpreting service for the city municipal court. Do I hear
Someone here from Clerk's office.
Angela Cochran,
Hey, Miss Angela.
2083 Fairburn Road. And it's just a renewal contract for the interpreter that we've been using for many a years, and I'm very pleased with them.
Okay.
So are we good? Having any problems out of it?
Never had a
Everything's
problem
good?
with them since I've been there.
Okay, Council Mayor?
Questions?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to put this on the consent agenda for Monday's meeting, if it's okay with the council.
Opposition to that? Okay, thank you. It'll be on
Okay.
the
Thank you.
consent agenda. Thank you.
Okay, item B, appoint Junior C. Hudson to be one of the City of Douglasville representative on the Douglas County Animal Control Advisory Board to serve a term expiring November 2nd, 2019.
Okay.
Chelsea.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Chelsea Jackson, 6695 Church Street, Douglasville, Georgia. Miss Julie Hudson, she wishes to be reappointed to the Animal Advisory Board. She has served a couple years. She's attended all the meetings, and the rest of the board would love her to stay on. She was unable to come in for an interview because she is vacationing. She's been vacationing for a few months now.
Council. I would love to have Miss Julie, and she's always been a plus.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know, I'd like to put on a consent agenda for Monday.
Yes, sir. She's a great advocate for animals, animal rights, so she's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Chelsea.
Item C, authorize the mayor to sign a proposal contract with American Document Securities, Inc. for disposal services for confidential documents for the Court Service Department. You're back.
Okay, Miss Angie.
It's just a container to shred our paper with at the end of the day. We were using the one with the PD, but since we've split, we've got our own now. So we had to sign a contract with them. We got a really good deal.
So we had no issues or,
No issues.
so everything's good. Counsel? Okay, we good? Okay, Madam Mayor, I'd like to put this on the consent agenda for Monday night.
Okay,
Pleasure.
Councilman, you putting all your on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Item
Angie.
D, authorize the Douglasville Police Department to apply for the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Justice Program Bulletproof Vest Partnership grant for the purpose of allowing the city to receive partial reimbursement for the cost of the bulletproof vest. Chief?
Is this half of the cost for 38 vests that we're requesting through this grant? We pay $650 per vest, so the total cost would be like $24,700. So the Department of Justice pay half of that. And it's just ensuring that we get the proper replacement for the 5-year expiration cycle of the vest and for our new hires. So it's a grant that we usually always get. It comes up every so often, every 3 to 5 years.
Any question from the council?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Madam Mayor?
Chief, you have 38 count this time, and what's the rotation? You said it's 3 to 5 years, or 5 years?
5 years.
And how many, so is everyone, they're within that time frame that they?
Right, we keep up with the date of those vests, the expiration dates of the vest.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we are projecting as 38 officers are gonna be needing 38 vests.
And that's how you
why we come
apply?
up with the number,
Okay,
yeah.
and that's how you apply for the grant based
Right,
on need?
Based on the numbers, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Council Miller?
That was my question.
We good?
Good.
Okay, if it's the council pleasure, I would like to put this on the consent agenda for Monday night. All well? Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Community and Economic Development Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Richard Siegel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 4 items. First is to appoint Jeffrey Camp to serve as the Post 2 member of the Development Authority of the City of Douglasville to fill a term expiring July 23rd, 2022.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Chelsea Jackson, 6695 Church Street. Mr. Jeff Camp wishes to be reappointed to the Development Authority. He has served on the authority for the past 4 years. I also serve as a Secretary Treasurer, and so he has never missed any days. He also serves his time on the UDO committee as well. So this individual, he's very in tune with his community, and he would like to be reappointed.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from Mayor or Council? All right, we'll move on to the next one, to appoint Scott Powers to serve as the Post 3 member of the Development Authority of the City of Douglasville to fill a term expiring July 23rd, 2022.
Good afternoon again, Mayor and Council. This goes the same for Mr. Scott Powers. He's not missed any meetings for the Development Authority. He loves serving and wishes to be reappointed.
Comments or questions from Mayor and Council? Hearing none, I'll move on to the next one. Appoint Jennifer Perkins to serve as the Post 4 member of the Development Authority of the City of Douglasville to fill a term expiring July 23rd, 2022.
And again, Ms. Perkins has not missed any meetings for the Development Authority, as well as she also serves on other steering committees for the city, as well as the UDO committee.
Any comments or questions from Mayor and Council? If there's no objections, I'd like to put all 3 of these appointments on the consent agenda for Monday.
That's fine.
As long as we're talking about the Development Authority, I just want to acknowledge Chris Pumphrey in the audience, who serves as the Executive Director for both the city and the county's Development Authority. So, welcome. And my 4th item is to authorize the mayor to sign a 2-year service agreement with the Black Educational Historical Exhibit Incorporated to facilitate the city's 2018 and 2019 Juneteenth festivals.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, this is an agreement with an organization that we have partnered with over several years. This agreement basically contains information regarding this year's upcoming event this summer. So if you take a look actually at page 1 of 6 down toward the bottom, it shows you what the city's contribution would be in exchange for the activities that are related to the event and the organization. Most of the activities, or I should say the support that the city would offer in exchange for the event being put on at the city would be in the exchange of staff level support. So there would be no funding that would be exchanged, but we would be providing some staff level support to make certain that logistically the event is able to be pulled off at Hunter Park.
Okay, any comments or questions from Mayor or Council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So it changed from 5 years? I thought they was planned for 5 years.
This says 2 years, so.
From my understanding at your last committee meetings, there was not desire to move to 5. I think we talked about under the Parks and Recreation Committee, we can move to 5 years on Monday if that is the desire, but we did not get a consensus, so we left it at the same.
And like I thought we had the nods for 5 years.
Anyone here have any strong feelings either way in terms of 2 through 5 years for the term of this agreement?
Mr. Chairman, I believe we had a rather lengthy discussion about that, and if I'm not mistaken, the individual in charge of that for the Juneteenth group was there with us during that discussion, and I thought that it was a consensus that we would go to a 2-year term.
And that was my recollection.
That was my
recollection
understanding
as well. So, I mean, we were talking about 2 years, and he was fine with that.
So with 2, and we'll revisit it.
We'll keep it at 2, but let's not put that on the consent agenda so we can think about it over the weekend. And with that, Madam Mayor, I have no other business.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Planning and Development Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Mark Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have several items tonight under Planning and Development. I am going to take the liberty as we go through these potentially to change the order in which we take them in the essence of time, if we could, so as to give everyone ample time, but at the same time, if it's something that is not going to have a lot of potential input, then I may change the order of it, and I would appreciate that opportunity to do that. But we will start with item A. Item A is appoint an individual to the post 4 position on the City of Douglasville Zoning Board for a 5-year term extending through June 1st, 2023.
I can cover that.
Thank you,
as you all know, that you are going through a series of interviews for this position. You held 2 tonight. You do have some candidates that you've interviewed in the past that you have to consider. What we can do is put this item back on your committee agenda for Monday night for further discussion to see if you are actually ready at that point to list names on the ballot. So we will be ready for more discussion at 5 p.m.
I understand, as we discussed in our 5 o'clock meetings, we do have several individuals that we have interviewed. We interviewed 2 this afternoon, so we do have several individuals to be considered. And I'm thankful that we have a large number of citizens that are willing to participate within the community. Moving on, I will go to item B, consider a request for revised plat approval for Gateway Village Subdivision Unit 1 for the purpose of changing street names for 39.83 acres at Highway 92 and Maroney Mill Road in land lot 551, District 18, Section 2, Parcel 46. Application by Butch Oliver, D.R. Horton Incorporated. Is there someone representing this request here tonight? No one. Okay. Is there any comment of council concerning the discussion on this item? I know have had no input and no discussion about it, but basically what it appears to be is a name change of streets within that development for whatever reason. I'm not sure of the reason. Okay. We will take that up then on Monday night. Next item. I'm going to go to item D, as in David. Consider a request for approval of a development plan for Vic's Tire Shop received April 4, 2018, located land lot 52, District 1, Section 5, Parcel 18, application by Mr. Larry Tony. Let me remind you all, please, I know that we've already been told by Madam Mayor that we would, during these discussions, we would give 30 minutes for each, for and against, any questions or comments that might be had, and we would limit our time, in the essence of time and for everyone's respect, to 5 minutes per person. We have just begun considering development plans in this way, so we will allow public comment at the time that the item is taken up rather than at the end of the meeting, so that those that may have a comment for or against are not required to wait until the comments by citizens and delegates at the end. Okay? So, Mr. Tony, identify yourself if you would, please, and give us your name and address for the record and go forward.
Yes, sir. Larry Tony, 3624 Kimbrough Point, Douglasville. Lugar, would you like to do?
My name is Loga Diabo, 1155 Shady Ridge Place, Austin, Georgia.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. If you would, please, when you're speaking, please speak up into the mic. I have had comments from citizens that have said that, why can we not hear you when we watch you on TV? We know you're speaking, but we can't hear you. And normally they're speaking of that person standing at the podium there and not us. So carry forward. Go ahead.
So we've submitted a plan to the city. We think that the city will be proud of. We think that when folks come off of I-20 and make that turn onto Fairburn Road, that there'll be something very pleasing to the eye. It's just a beautiful plan, and again, we think the city will be very proud of that, and we ask respectfully for your approval. Would you like to say?
Thank you very much, Mr. Tony. Is there? Yes, sir. Go forward.
Well, we're just here for the approval, and since that the gateway to Douglasville, so we're here to provide, you with a beautiful service that we can always, provide. I am glad to be a part of what the progress is coming along, and I just want your approval. That's all I'm here.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Mr. Tony, for the benefit of all, for our listening, our viewing audience, listening audience, and all of us, would you just give us a general idea where the project is and what it involves?
Yes, sir. We are, I'm proud to tell you that the old Taco Bell is gone.
It is.
It was taken down and hauled away about 2 days ago, so that eyesore is gone. A slab remains, which is a part of our new plan. That'll be cut back to allow for the 50-foot right-of-way, and that'll be incorporated into the new building that we'll be building. Vic and Lugar will be doing tires. They'll have tire sales. They'll be doing front-end alignment, and we've incorporated that, and with a great elevation. You guys have seen a copy of that, hopefully. And
yes, sir.
We think that the city was going to be pleased with what they see.
Having said that, I know that this is somewhat of a, for lack of a better term, a guinea pig, because this is one of the first times that our new revised facade ordinance has been tested. And I know you and I, Mr. Tony, have had discussion, and Mr. Miller, we've met and talked about the various types of facades that were and were not allowable, and hoping to simplify that. And I appreciate you working through that process with us.
Yes, sir. You're quite well. We're glad to do
hope that it's not been too much of a stumbling block to you, but it's a work in progress, so we wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Appreciate everything you've done.
Is there does the council have any question or comment of these individuals? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Tony, I know you're not the architect, but I'm looking at and I can't ask the architect right now. I'm looking at the elevations, and we've got 4 sides of the building labeled front, side, and rear. Can you tell me which one of those views is the side that actually faces Fairburn Road?
The front elevation would face Fairburn Road.
Okay. So the bay doors we'll see when we're driving up.
You will see the bay doors. Right.
Got it. Thank you. That's all I have.
Other questions? Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question, but a comment. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony, for representing Mr. Vigard. And thank you, Mr. Vic. We're excited that you are investing more into the community. You've been in Douglasville for a long time. You're very busy, which is great. And we appreciate you making a larger investment and cleaning up that area. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions of council? Okay. Is there anyone here anyone else that would speak in support of or in opposition to, let's do support of first, this application for development? redevelopment? Seeing none, is there anyone here that would speak in opposition? Okay. Then we will take that up on Monday night. I would assume that it having come to this point that I don't see Mr. Mettler in our midst, but I'm assuming that our building department and the review has been done to make sure that everything is within tolerance and within reason concerning the development and the materials being used on that revised facade ordinance. Okay, we will move on then. We'll take that up on Monday night. We will go backward then to item C.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
apologize
I'm
for
sorry.
interrupting you. And I just want to bring to the attention and transparency that the architect was Councilman Miller, and that's why he left and came back, so.
I'm
he was
sorry,
being-
I did not acknowledge that he was gone. I did not miss you at all, Mr. T. Miller, but I'm sorry.
So the drawings.
No offense meant by that, but I did not realize you were gone. I was busy conducting a meeting. I'm sorry.
I know, the renderings are beautiful. Did a great job. But, so I just want to bring that to attention. If someone
Yes.
knew that it was Miller architectural firm, that he did leave the room.
Thank you. Appreciate you bringing that to my attention,
Yes,
Madam
sir.
Mayor. Okay, we'll go backward then to item C. Consider a request for approval of a development plan for a portable rock crushing plant received April 18, 2018, located land lot 189, District 2, Section 5, Parcel 21, application by Mr. Bart Boyd. Would the applicant's representative please come forward?
Hi, Darrell Ray, HRC 6554 Church Street, Douglasville, Georgia. HRC is going to be doing the engineering for this project, so we did all of the drawings and everything for the development plan. We'll be helping to move forward, once we get approval on the development plan towards the, construction documents and getting all of the LDP permits through the city and WSA and all of any other required permits on there. So basically on this, these guys are going to be manufacturing materials taken principally from the earth in the form of stone, clay, and sand. We've got a 400 square foot office there. They don't need much of an office here, but just something to have, for a site superintendent. We've got a few, employee parking there. Going to have to extend our driveway in so that we can have ingress and egress into the property there. Basically, we've got 152 acres on this heavy industrial site, and for this plant, it's probably going to be 10 acres or less that would be disturbed, to create this this yards for these to come in and have this processing plant there with it. So, talk about the office, the parking, the driveway in, the yards for the raw material and for the finished products going out, stormwater management there. Have to have a septic field for the restrooms that we'll have, and so pretty much for all of that, be about 10 acres or less that we're showing as be disturbed on there. So you can kind of see on the plan how much the small area compared to the entire 152 acre parcel there.
Okay. Questions? Council? Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ray, I had a couple of questions. And so it's a rock crushing. Is that different from mining or quarrying? So you're bringing rocks from somewhere else. To me, it's kind of like a pinch or a squeeze. It's the same thing, but so is it different?
It is not a quarry, and it's not any mining. So yes, we'll bring in raw material, and it'll be processed there, and then it'll be exported from the site.
So does it have the same effect when you're crushing with noise and pollution and all of that? That were some of the concerns with, with the quarry. If you're crushing rock, is it still debris and affect the ozone layer and all of that?
I hope it doesn't affect the ozone layer, and everything would stay within the permitted uses there. But I'm going to turn that over to Bart and his guys that might be a little more expert on that part of the process.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Prior to doing that, if you would, is there anyone else that had a question for this individual?
I had a quick question.
Mr. T. Miller? Just for the essence of time, just so we keep it together.
Yes, you're dabbling in architecture, speaking of the subject, Mr. Ray.
Yes. Basically, you see what we're doing there. We're just making sure we're going to have a masonry, four-sided masonry building there. It'd be
You're going to have to explain to me at some point how that's decorative masonry.
Well, here's the idea, Terry. We're going to meet the code.
Okay. No, there's no question about that as far as that. I just found that kind of interesting. Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Other questions of Mr. Ray? Okay, thank you, sir. And you'd like to turn it over to Mr. Bart Boyd? Come forward, Mr. Boyd. How are you?
Good evening.
I'm doing fine, Madam Mayor, Council. Good to see you again. Glad I could bring the crowd.
Just give us your name and address for the record,
yes.
please. Yes,
Bart
sir.
Boyd, 1709 Ardglass Court in Kennesaw, Georgia. If you'd like, I'll address the question that you posed to Mr. Del Rey first. It is a very similar process. The materials are a little more varied with regard to what we would intend to manufacture at this site. You know, essentially earthen materials, be it, you know, clays, dirts, stone, that type of material. Just as an example of the types of material that would potentially come in for you know, the manufacturing of a construction aggregate or fill type materials. Everyone's aware of the sewer and stormwater expansion projects where they drilled the big tunnels, and there's, you know, it creates this byproduct which is hundreds of thousands of tons of material. A good example of that is the big pile that sits behind the building over at Maxim Road. It's been there for 12 years or so. That's the types of materials that we would target to bring in. Another good example would be the Anderson Williams project that was recently done here in town, where a lot of material was drilled and blasted from that site, dirt removed from that site. Those are the types of materials that we would intend to bring in and manufacture a construction aggregate or a construction fill type product out of. So, and to answer your question on the processing, again, you know, it's very similar. Depending on the material that's being processed, you know, it may be, you know, as loud as a quarry processing plant like what's across the street. It could be something that's much less loud if you're processing clays and that sort of thing. Again, there's a lot of noise abatement measures that we would intend to take to make sure that was all kept to a minimum, similar to what we discussed the last time I was before the council. With regard to the ozone and that sort of thing, we would still, you know, fall under the EPD's rules for emissions, be it, you know, airborne particulate, exhaust, that sort of thing. So, you know, all of that is regulated very heavily, and we would obviously intend to be in compliance there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Coach, did you have a question?
Mr. Chairman,
Boyd?
thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Boyd, I was just wondering about truck traffic, delivering the material, taking the product back out again. What kind of effect will that have on that area?
Well, this particular project, Councilman Watts, is going to be a much smaller scale than what we were proposing on this site earlier. The volumes that are going to be sold from this site are going to be effectively a fraction. The target audience is much smaller. So as you know, in our, is it ARC? The ARC study, we fell well below the threshold to even trigger a traffic study with that other project. So my assumption is that it's going to fall even further below unless the thresholds have changed.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. That's all I have.
Other questions? T. Miller?
Mr. Boyd, the notification that your attorney sent us, is this in reference to this application or the previous application?
He's actually here, and I'd love for him to address that.
Okay, if we could let's hold that question then until the attorney comes forward. Other questions from Mr. Boyd? Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Welcome back, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel.
And thank you for bringing your friends, a lot of familiar faces. Question in terms of the inputs to the process, would reclaimed concrete be something that could be crushed? Like no, if a sidewalk was torn up, is that usable?
The materials we would intend to crush would be, you know, virgin material, earthen material, again, cut, fill, materials coming off of job sites that have just come from the earth, the boring material that, results from those tunnels and that type of thing.
But the old jail, for example, could not be put through your process.
The old jail,
yeah.
that I don't think, that process is a little bit different with regard to the extraction of metals and that sort of thing from that type of material.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Davis.
So, Mr. Mark, welcome back. How many employees will it take to operate this?
We haven't gotten to the details of that, but I can tell you that it's going to be plus or minus 6 people in the processing plant. There'll be at least 1 administrator, possibly 2, and a supervisor. The salaries for this type of work are very similar to what we discussed, in the quarry application. So they're good. They're much higher than what I've seen coming across the board here with regard to staffing some of these tech boxes out there, where the mid range is in the 20s. We're talking more like 50s and 60s, and in excess of that for supervisors and that sort of thing. So,
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Boyd, you mentioned that there would be some traffic coming from this site, but it would be reduced. Do you have, my question is, should we anticipate like 500 tractor trailers a day coming out of this site?
No. And I can't remember what the total trips were that we submitted after our initial study. But again, it's going to be less than half, possibly even less than that, with regard to total trips in and out, which took into consideration employees coming to and from work, materials and parts and supplies coming in and out of the site, fuel in and out of the site, truck traffic in and out. So,
when you say less than half, you mean on your initial application, or the 500 I used as an example?
Less than half of what we submitted to the ARC on the previous project application.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Boyd, I had just a couple of questions just to clarify for the group. First of all, it's called a portable setup. That means that you could break it down. In other words, it's not something that would be built within the property that is not removable. It's all portable. Just explain that a little bit for us.
That's correct. It's really about scale and cost. A fixed plant, as you know from our previous conversations, is something that comes with a significant cost of construction and that sort of thing. Again, with the lower volumes that we would expect to handle, there are manufacturers of portable equipment that can be easily set up and broken back down and moved. It's helpful, especially when you've got a varied product mix like this, to be able to move the plant from one place to the other as you're processing different materials within that less than 10-acre site. And the initial capital expenditure that comes along with that is significantly lower.
Okay.
And gives us a little bit more of a competitive advantage there.
Second, by not having in the application the request for a mining operation, then basically what you're going to be processing will be material that you have hauled into the site, not any material that you would be taking off the site itself. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it would be brought in by truck, rail, or whatever, dumped there, processed, and then hauled away.
That is correct.
Okay. I noticed in your site drawings where you've shown us the type of buildings and the plant, you have a site drawing there that attempts, it would seem to me, it seems to be extremely close to the Southern Railway line, the railroad, and that I'm sure that may have been done for a specific purpose, hoping that, I think in your previous application, one of the things you talked about was potentially a spur to haul material out there. Would you anticipate that with the scale of this project being much smaller as you've described, would that be a possibility as to the aggregate leaving the site that way?
I can tell you that we have had no conversation with Norfolk Southern since the modification to this potential use. So in terms of what the opportunity is there, I really can't answer that. It is certainly something that we will be considering going forward. If there is an opportunity to make the business more efficient, more profitable that way, it's certainly something we would move toward.
I was just curious about traffic as to in and out, whether it came in on truck, and then if there was going to be that large a volume, if there was a possibility of it leaving via train.
There is always that possibility, and
Sure.
the import of material via rail is something that could be significant for the site as well.
We appreciate that. If there's no other questions for Mr. Boyd, then I believe Mr. Terry Miller, Councilman Miller, had a question for the attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council.
Thank you, sir. How are you this evening, sir?
I am. Thank you, Mr. I'm Doug Dillard with Persia Friesen Torgensen and Baxter Russell, and I represent the applicant.
Could you give us your address for the record, please?
There. It's 1230 Peachtree Street, Northeast, Suite 1200, Atlanta 30309.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miller, would you like to ask that question?
Yes, sir. You distributed to the City Council a notification regarding potential future actions on a development by your client. And what I'm trying to clarify, is this referencing this particular development or the previously submitted? And does that mean that previously submitted is withdrawn?
The other matters are being handled separately with pending litigation today. This is a separate application. It's independent and not connected to the previous applications.
This letter that you gave us today refers specifically to this application?
This application, that's correct.
I don't know, is there any, I asked the city attorney if there's anything that we cannot talk about regarding this notification.
I haven't seen the notification and don't know what's in it.
It's pretty much identical to the previous notification.
All right. Perhaps I can look at it before you meet on Monday night then. Okay. Perhaps I could look at it before you meet on Monday night and give you better advice.
Okay.
And we'll be available. We'll be available.
Under notification in zoning matters, the Supreme Court requires that if you have a constitutional challenge, you have to bring it to the attention of a local government. We get these letters in one form or another every time we have a rezoning almost. So there's nothing unusual about this letter.
I mean, the words that jump out at me, though, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, and in my brief acting career, I never played one on TV as well. But the terms arbitrary and capricious, what I guess I'm trying to get to the point of, and not to debate legal issues, is I guess the notion of free will of a governing body. You seem to indicate that there is an inevitable outcome to a vote in this particular, and I'm going to talk in generalities, I guess, but to vote against your way, it would be arbitrary and capricious. Now, I suppose if the City Council decided to say, we're going to turn down this request because you're going to paint your trucks blue, if we specifically stated that, that would be arbitrary and capricious. But if there's no reasoning behind it, it's this body's, in my opinion, this body's responsibility to vote for what we think is the community's best and highest interest. I do not know how I'm going to vote, nor do I know how any other member of this council will vote. But I find it troubling that, if you know your Greek mythology, the sword of Damocles is hanging over the City Council with a notification such as this.
May I respond?
Sorry?
Would you like for me to respond?
You may, sir.
Good. The Constitution gives us all the right to own property. And the Constitution also gives us the right to use our property for any lawful purpose. Local governments can regulate our right to use that unfettered right, that constitutional freedom that our forefathers died for. Local governments, cities and counties in Georgia, can regulate my free right to use my property only through a proper exercise of the police power. Zoning and land use development is a power that's given to you as a council person by the Constitution to regulate your land use and your developments in Douglas County. It's got to be reasonable. It's got to have some relationship to the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare. And failing that, then that decision then is arbitrary and capricious. So we're not accusing you of being an arbitrary person. We're saying that our request is reasonable, and I'm going to go through some standards here in just a minute, that our request is reasonable, that as such, the property is already zoned for heavy industrial. It can be used for a lot more severe uses than what we're proposing. So the exercise of the police power, Mr. Councilperson, has got to be uniform. It's got to be consistent. It can't be an abuse of discretion on one hand and arbitrary and capricious on the other. So it's a protection of our right to have a court of law determine whether or not your decision is lawful or not in the event you deny it. We're hopeful we don't have to go to court. That's the last place we all want to be. But we've got to protect that, as counsel has just pointed out to you. We've got to raise those issues before you make your decision Monday night. We cannot raise them for the first time in Superior Court. So this is it's a quirk in the law that we've got to do. I've been doing this for over 40 years. I have some of the land use cases, and one of them is Gould versus Holcomb Bridge that followed on the heels of Barrett versus Hamby, which set that standard. So that's sort of how we get here. What I would like to say, though, is that this is not about a quarry. And I want that to be very clear. We've got that issue being handled elsewhere. You know, what we have discovered is that under your code, we think that we have the right, under the heavy industrial, to have this processing facility, okay? And when you adopt your development code, which you've done, you exhaust your discretion. If your development code talks about traffic, if your development code talks about environmental issues, if your development code talks about height limitations, et cetera, then we've got to satisfy that. But once you adopt your development code, you've exhausted your discretion. And if we comply with that code, which we say we do, and our architects and engineers have done a very good job of that, once we comply with what you say we've got to do for this type of facility in Douglas County, then you have no discretion. And that's what we say is we've got a right to have this processing plant because it is clearly defined in your ordinance, and let me show you how. First of all, we filed this on April 18th. Your staff has 5 days to review it. If they feel it's not in compliance, they can send it back to us, but they got to send it back to us. They've not done that. And what does the code require? Under your use code, you know that 4 or 5 page document that you've got in your development code, you've got all these definition of uses, okay? Under this particular use, under heavy industrial, it provides for stone, clay, glass, and concrete products, okay? So we're crushing stone, dealing with concrete products. Bart just explained to you what we're doing. So we feel like we come within that use provision of your code. In addition to that, you have adopted the standard industrial classifications called SIC, S-I-C. And under that definition, section 3295 of your code says it authorizes the crushing of stone and material without there being a quarry or a mine on the property. And that's where we come in. We're heavy industrial, it's a permitted use, and we're also meeting the SIC definition. In addition to that, you've developed some standards for project approval, okay? And that's section 9.03.04. And there are 4 standards that you consider in that situation. 3 of them we meet. 1 of them is not applicable to us because we're not dealing with a 100-acre site. But the first one deals with the names of the development, the names of the streets, and that kind of thing. Well, we don't need that, and it's not being duplicated. No street name is being duplicated. As far as I know, we're not changing any street names. B, the preliminary plat shall be prepared with the boundary survey showing all the property. The site plan that we have prepared, that our engineers have prepared, is pursuant to a boundary survey, and it shows the...
Oh, that's your 30 minutes.
I promised I didn't do that.
No, that's built into the system, Mr. Dillard. Has the time expired for this individual? Okay. The 5 minutes has expired.
My 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
So, as just a point of order, I'm all that we got left. If we have any time left, I know there's some people here that are going to be in opposition. If there would be some time left where we could rebut some of that, there might be some, I think there's some misunderstandings out there that we would like to close with.
Thank you, Mr. Dillard. I appreciate that, and we will give ample time to both sides, and we're keeping a record of how much time has been given to the proposal.
And how much of the 30 minutes do we have left?
You have 15.
15?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Okay, is there anyone else that would speak, realizing now you've used 15 minutes of the total 30, that would like to speak in favor of this development process?
Hey, Madam Mayor, City Council, I am going to get this to you. Charles DePriest, 5823 Saracen Trail, Douglasville, Georgia. One thing that I wanted to point out to your question, Mr. Miller, about the truck traffic. This is, we're not talking about an Anderson window site here, where there will be significant truck traffic. And again, one thing I think it's important to point out too that we talked about back a year ago was that creating this product doesn't create demand. You understand? This is not a shoe sale at Macy's because you have a sale. People just come get it. If you need it, you come get it. So the product that we make would be a substitute from the quarry that's across the street. So truck traffic technically will not increase in that area, in that industrial area right there. So I just want to make sure that we pointed that out.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Were there any questions of council before we go?
I did have a couple of questions,
Yes, Madam
Mr. Chairman.
And who are you directing that question
The
to?
attorney.
Mr. Dillard?
And I know this is not a debate, this is just for information.
Sure.
We're just trying to gather information. I know you said something about our discretion, and I think that's subjective, of course, and you mentioned about the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. And then the processing is processing the materials once they're brought to the facility. Is the processing mechanism, is that like quarrying? Because I'm still not clear in that. So, because that would, even though you aren't mining or quarrying, if you bring concrete or glass.
We're not digging it out of the ground, we're bringing it in, but a quarry does have a crusher, but I'm gonna ask Bart to respond to that.
It's alleviating one step with the mining portion, but once the materials are there, then you're still gonna process it like you would ordinarily if it were a quarry.
The process is very similar. The types of equipment are very similar, and so are the, regulatory compliance rules.
Sir.
So with regard to dust suppression and that sort of thing, we'll still be held to those same standards. Again, heavily regulated, multiple annual visits. As we discussed a year ago, you've got a facility right across the street who has no NOVs, as far as we know, for the last 18 years. So in terms of, public health, it's been deemed by the Environmental Protection Division of Georgia that they are not in violation and that they are, operating and protecting the community around them with their dust suppression measures and whatnot.
Does
that help you?
That's a question.
I have one
Thank you.
comment too, Madam Mayor, about that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The quarry across the street, is I think it's a 3-crusher quarry inside, not including the crusher that actually takes the materials from the pit.
Mm-hmm.
This is a significant reduced scale that we're talking here. We're talking 1 screen and we're talking 1 crusher. So it's a very reduced. It's 2 crushers. It's a very reduced down size of what's across the street. But again, the EPD will assign an air permit to that and hold you to the standards under that permit.
Now, you talked about across the street. Do they process the same, and will they have materials? You said you made the correlation about Macy's and the shoe sale. If Macy's and Dillard's are right across the street from each other and you need shoes, you go to Macy's, you're not going to go to Dillard's. So if it's right across the street and you still have crushed material there, why would you have another facility with crushed materials?
Madam Mayor, it's all about competition here. It's all about reduced costs for actually the end user. And so you've got to be competitive in that. If you don't know, there's been a significant acquisition. There's primarily 2 operators now in Metro Atlanta. I think there's 3.
Okay.
3 operators. That's reduced from 5. When you reduce that, it's just simple economics. Prices go up. So, really this is something that the city and the residents actually need in terms of being able to provide building products at reasonable prices.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does that answer your
Appreciate
question,
it.
Madam
Yes,
Mayor?
sir.
Thank you, gentlemen. I believe Coach Watts has a question for
Whoever, Mr. Boyd probably. Just one quick question. I understand from what y'all are saying, we're talking about a downsized site, 2, was it 2 crushers? Okay. What could foreseeably be the circumstances that would warrant wanting to expand the size of that site for crushing or adding crushers? What might dictate that, or you just plan on keeping it small?
That would just be driven by the need for additional capacity as a result of sales that are greater than what we project. We I believe shared with you, the types of volumes we projected. Should we quarry on the property, have a larger scale operation, have an identical product to compete, with the operator across the street. But this being a different type of process where you've got the need to not only acquire material but sell material, the scale is going to be a little bit smaller. It's not identical material to what's across the street necessarily, but it is a competing material. Be that as a construction aggregate or fill material or something else. So to get back to your question, should sales be double what we projected in 10 years, it's feasible that we would be looking for a different construction permit for a permanent larger site with greater capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Okay. Any other question? I did have one that has come up, and Mr. Boyd, or I'm sorry, city staff would be the one that I would address this to, and Mr. Ruffin or Ms. Wright, if you would help us with this. We're reviewing a development plan for this applicant. It's not a zoning hearing.
Correct.
Under previous applications, there had been a requirement for a special land use permit to operate a quarry, a mining operation.
That's correct.
Does this application require that special land use permit?
Just for the record, Aaron Ruffin, Interim Community Development Director. This application does not require that. It is a permitted
Not require a special land use permit?
That's correct.
According to our ordinance?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. I will ask Mr. Ruffin before you leave, you have already reviewed everything, your department has already reviewed everything as far as facades, as far as the requirements that have been placed upon the applicant, as I believe Mr. Dillard had mentioned, and that has been reviewed and has been passed on to us in the form of these drawings and the presentation information, correct?
That is correct. They meet all the requirements.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Madam
You're
Mayor.
going to get tired of me. This is the last one. Mr. Ruffin, so legal for Mr. Boyd says something about April 18th and a 5-day turnaround. We did not respond, or why didn't we?
Well,
did we have to?
I didn't have to respond because they met all the requirements of the submittal. So that's
Okay.
only if they do not meet the requirements. I have that to reject it.
Okay, thank you. I
You're
just
welcome.
wanted to make sure we weren't negligent or missed the ball or something on that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Miller?
Ruffin, I mean-
Mr. Ruffin, please remain
Sorry.
for just a moment. Mr. Miller has a question.
Okay.
Got my Fitbit on. Couple steps.
I guess maybe 8 months ago, we kind of got into trouble with a development plan where the taxpayers or constituents or citizens misunderstood the passage of a development plan by the board, the then board that we had, where the development plan fell under the current zoning. Just for clarification, my understanding of this application is for a development plan, the types of buildings that are used, the facades that are used, et cetera, et cetera.
That's correct.
And that meets the city standard?
That's correct.
All right. And the second phase of this question is that if I understand everything correctly, is that this is not a zoning application, so the use of this property as they have applied at this point, they're not even really applying, it's garnered by or it's allowed by city zoning law.
That's correct. So it's a permitted use under our permitted use table. What you have before you now is there, within our development code, all development plans must come before mayor and council for final approval after staff has vetted the item to make sure all requirements have been met.
Okay. So at this point, we are not making a decision on whether they're going to use this property according to code. It is the use that they're moving under at this point is allowed by code. We are just approving the site plan.
That's correct. So if they deviate from the use that they presented to you for you, and they have to modify their plan in any way, they would have to come back before you.
Yeah, I want to make that adamantly clear because we have supported the constituents' point of view on this in the past. But in a separate issue, we ran into scrutiny, public scrutiny, because we had made a decision that was not a zoning decision, and the constituency did not understand the difference between a zoning application and the adoption or allowing the development plan. Okay, so this is much different from the first application where we as a city council could say, no, you're not going to use that for the purported purpose. This is different from that situation. We are saying that your building and development plan meets our specifications and the use is already provided for under the law.
That's correct.
Is that a good statement?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that a proper
Yes,
statement?
I think so. Yes, that's a proper statement.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of folks here that we've seen before, and I just want to make it clear that what we vote on this is the development plan,
right?
Not the use of the property.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller, you should be handling this meeting. That was a great explanation, and I appreciate it.
I thought I was running on, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good job. Okay, if there's no other, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a comment.
Could we limit our comments? I mean, are we limited to 30 minutes? Go ahead.
It's just an observation. I'm looking at the map that shows the parcel where this will be done, as well as where on the parcel the portable rock crushing plant will be, and it is in the southeastern corner of the property, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it's as far as you can get from the residences on North Baggett Road as you can get and still be on this property, correct? That's just, it's a comment, I'm not really asking, correct? Rhetorical question then. And I also noticed that it does not involve the light industrial property immediately to the east, so it's pretty far then from the Bible camp as well, since that was right next to the light industrial property. So
Right.
there is quite a bit of distance from the actual site where they want to do the rock crushing from any uses that could potentially be impacted by it due to proximity. So it's far from any other of those uses. So I just want to point that out, which has nothing to do with the development, has nothing to do with the zoning ordinance. It's where they're putting it on the property for their development. I know the public does not have a copy of the map to see where it's actually
thank
situated.
you for including
so
that.
that's why I'm going to point that out. And I have nothing else to say.
Thank you.
For now.
And I will just add, the only relationship to the light industrial piece is the access. So there will be access easement across that property. So
Very southern edge of that parcel.
that's correct.
Mr. T. Miller.
Yeah, quick comment. Just to my colleague M. Miller's point that basically what my frustration in this situation is that the difference between voting on a zoning issue versus voting on a development issue essentially is we're a rubber stamp. Yeah, that's what.
They meet the requirements.
I question what's the point of even having, and we're going to probably discuss this, I think, at some point in the future, is why does it come to the council to vote on development issues that are, if they're 100% compliant and we have no option to vote against it, what's the point?
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
All I say. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to then give opportunity to those persons that may have opposition. And could I ask, please, how much time we have given to the applicant?
Actually, the applicant has about 10 more minutes if they want to have someone come speak in support prior to you opening up to the opposition.
Thank you, Ms. Hampton. I think they'd already mentioned they wanted to reserve that 10 minutes as far as a potential rebuttal, and that's the reason we were moving forward. Is that correct, gentlemen? Okay. Is there someone here that would want to come forward? And again, please identify yourself, name and address for the record, and speak in opposition to this development plan. Understand, folks, this is not a zoning hearing, but we do want you to be heard as citizens and delegates as we have come to each item. So thank you for coming.
Mike Kirkland, 1111 Doris Road, Douglasville, Georgia. And I yield my time to Curtis Shipley. So.
Okay. Let me ask this. Is there someone, is Mr. Shipley then going to be yielded to by others? Or if so, then we can just do that one time and then know how much time there is allotted rather than. That'll be just fine. Come forward.
Madam Mayor, council members, Curtis Shipley, 1122 Doris Road, Douglasville, Georgia. I'd like to speak to you this afternoon in opposition to this development plan. I believe Mr. Ruffin may have made a mistake. No disrespect meant, but in looking at the code, the SIG code, the applicants have chosen, which is 3295, did a good bit of research on this particular code, and it would appear that, of course, the applicant mentioned crushing clay as well as rock, and it appears that this code would allow someone to crush clay, but rock is not allowed. And let me explain to you what I've got. And this is, you can pull these up. I know y'all don't have a copy of this in front of you, so I'll try to be very clear in what it says. But if you pull it up, basically it gives a description on what is allowed, and then it gives examples of what's here. And so if we look specifically on 3295, minerals, earth, ground, otherwise treated, again, it gives a brief description here of what it expects the manufacturing to look like, and then it gives samples, examples, if you will, of what the product that they would expect to be crushed or ground would be. And so the explanation here is very telling in that it clearly delineates what the SIC code considers to be a mining operation from a manufacturing operation. So let me just read to you, if I can, what this says. First, I'll read to you what it says is mining, and then it makes five exceptions to the mining purpose that it says, okay, now these are manufacturing. So let's look at what it says is mining, and then I'll go back and we'll look at the 5 exceptions to see if that applies, okay?
Mr. Shipley, can you identify your source there that you're speaking from again for us?
Oh, from here?
Yeah.
I pulled this online. This is OSHA's, basically it's a SIC code, Standard Industrial Classification Code. Anybody can look at it online. You go online, pull it up. There's dozens of sites that have all the SIC codes listed, and that's what we're looking at here. So, in reading the explanation of what mining is, now let me tell you this. There's one word that's used in here that's kind of specific to mining. Not a common word. I had to look it up myself. So let me just give you the definition for that so everybody's real clear on what they're saying rather than wondering about what does that word mean. So the word is beneficiation, and that just means a separation process. If we have an ore, like iron ore, tin ore, and we have to separate the rock from tin, then beneficiation is that process of crushing or separating it. Could be other, could be vacuum, heat, whatever. But it's just a separation process. That's all it means. So now here's the term. The beneficiation or preparation of other minerals, referring to minerals other than the ones specifically accepted above, the 5 exceptions. Other minerals and metallic ores and the cleaning and grading of coal are classified in Division B, mining. Now this is crucial. Whether or not the operation is associated with a mine. So clearly, you can have an operation that's considered a mining operation when there's no mine there. Okay, now let me give you the exceptions to this rule. They're very clear. Establishments operating a mine without a mine or quarry and primarily engaged in crushing, grinding, pulverizing, or otherwise preparing clay, ceramic, and refractory minerals, barite, and miscellaneous non-metallic minerals except fuels. These minerals are crude products mined by the establishments of industry groups. Now, this is crucial. The industry groups that are accepted, 145, 149, 1479, and then it gives us 2 that are not enumerated. Also included are establishments primarily crushing slag and preparing roofing granules. So now, I don't think there's any claim that that they are going to be crushing metal slag or that they're preparing roofing granules. So I believe we could dispense with those exceptions and move on to the 145, the 149, and the 1479. I apologize, my mouth is dry. I'm talking a little silly here. Would y'all mind if I grabbed a bottle of water right quick? Excuse me. This only happens when you're in front of a crowd, right? Okay, so back to the exceptions. 145, 149, and 1479. Now here, if we look up 145, again, this is a SIC code. You can go online and look at it. It's clearly talking about kaolin, ball clay, clay, ceramic, and refractory. So you remember what I said. If he's talking about crushing clay, it would appear that that is allowed by the SIC code. So this is concerning clay, not granite. There's nothing, they list the materials here. There's nothing about on granite here, okay? So that kind of eliminates 145 if we're talking about granite. Allows clay, but not granite. All right, so now that takes us on to 149. 149 is miscellaneous non-metallic minerals except fuels. I know this gets confusing. But here's what they do. They, again, give a brief description, and then they have an exhaustive list of examples of the minerals that are considered. In fact, there's like 72 of them. 2 pages worth of minerals, examples of products that are considered for manufacturing, not mining. Out of the 72 examples on here, granite is not on here. In fact, I looked at the G's real careful. There's 10 products on here, graphite, garnet, all kind of green sand. I never even heard of green sand, but not granite. Granite is not allowed under 149. That takes us back to the last exception is 1479, and it is chemical, fertilizer, and mineral manufacturing. Now, obviously, even though it lists what they are, we know that granite is not a fertilizer. So again, doesn't apply to 149. So that would seem to take care of the exceptions that would allow crushing granite to be considered a manufacturing operation. Now, how can we be sure that they didn't just somehow or another overlook granite? You know, it's supposed to be in here, but they kind of forgot to put it in there. Well, what I did there is I took some key words that would be similar to the process as described. Crushing rock, crushing granite, broken rock, dozens of keywords in, and only 3 codes came up. Those are number 1423, which is related to, and it specifically names granite, crushed and broken granite. This is the code for it, 1423. 1429 is labeled crushed and broken stone, and then 1442, which is construction sand and gravel. So it would appear to me that any of these 3 concepts here would be very similar to what the proposed production is talking about doing. But now here's the problem. All 3 of these are under subsection 14, which is a mining operation. So if you look back, if you remember, 3295 clearly said, except for these 5 items, all other items, even though there's not a mine there, it is considered a mining operation. So, not my opinion, but the SIC code says crushing granite is a mining operation. As you well know, is that just the 5 minutes or that's the end? I respectfully request that you would deny this. It is a mining operation not allowed by right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shipley. Before we go to the next person, could we have our city staff, Mr. Aaron Ruffin, respond to that so that we keep it separate, please? And we will not, this will not be taken away from your time.
Yeah. I, along with the Assistant City Staff Attorney, Susan Littlefield, we went through this extensively. At the end of the day, I have to base it on what they submit. And on their, direct your attention to the site plan that they provided. And under the proposed use, they list stone, clay, glass, and concrete products. And so I understand what the gentleman is saying about the rock, but I have to tie it back to what they list as their proposed use.
So, Mr. Ruffin, are you saying that they did not propose to process granite? Is that what you're saying?
Not according to what they submitted to our office.
Their application does not include granite.
Right.
Therefore, would their application then be null and void if approved if they were processing granite?
We'll have to go back and take a look at that with the city staff attorney just to make sure that in looking at the SIC code, there is a lot of language as it relates to the different exceptions as it relates to the different mining materials. I do believe based on what we saw, there is basis for denying it, saying that it's a mining, but at this time, I could not give you a definitive answer as to whether or not we would have rejected it within those 5 days.
Sure, thank you.
Yes. I'm not familiar with this geo stuff. Is there a difference between stone and granite?
I'm not an expert on geo stuff.
I always thought
well,
granite was stone, right? So, but
I have to do more research. I can provide you with that information before your Monday meeting, but I'm not an expert, so I don't feel comfortable giving you an answer at this time.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ruffin. Anyone else? Please come forward. Give us your name and address for the record. and we are glad you're here. Welcome you. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. How are y'all? My name is Teresa Knowles. I live at 1799 South Flat Rock Road, and I would like to yield my time to Beth Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. How are you, Ms. Johnson?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Hey, Beth.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Chairman, and members of the council, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm sorry, I'm a little hoarse. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I respectfully request that you deny this
Johnson,
development plan. Yes.
I need your name and address for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're on Rose Avenue.
Beth Johnson, 8940 Rose Avenue, Douglasville, Georgia, 30134.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that. I respectfully request that you deny the development plan submitted for a portable rock crushing plant, because I do not agree that this development plan is in 100% compliance with the code. And years ago, when I was on the city council, Madam Mayor and I served on the Planning and Zoning Committee, and to answer your question, Councilman Miller, we reviewed, it seems like, hundreds and hundreds of development plans. And the reason that I would think now that it's brought to the mayor and council, it is a very good reason, because we probably rejected 99% of them for some minor errors and some very major errors that just get overlooked sometimes, and you have to really study these plans to make sure they're in compliance, because it gets tricky. And we had lots and lots of them back then, and it was just our job to find these problems, because if it goes beyond this point, it goes to site plan, it gets developed with major errors. So I'm going to state why I want you to deny this for the following reasons. The development plan does not meet the current requirements for approval based on the city's zoning and development laws. The plan was filed by the applicant under the old development plan requirements and does not meet the current code, which states every development plan shall contain the following: the location of all buildings, the location of all minimum building setback lines, outdoor storage areas, buffers, individual parking spaces, and driveways. The plan does not show the required 50-foot front building setback from the street right-of-way. No outdoor storage areas are shown on the plan. The development plan does not show any of the required stream buffers on the property. This property is in the Gothard's Creek sub-watershed, in which stream buffer requirements are 50 feet from the bank. There are 2 blue line perennial streams on the property. Neither the streams nor the required buffers are shown on the submitted plan. These streams, along with any unmapped streams on the property, are subject to the City of Douglasville Stream Buffer Ordinance. In addition, all other streams on the property, as well as all waters of the state, are subject to the requirements of the State Erosion and Sedimentation Act, which require a 25-foot buffer on all state waters. None of these required buffers are shown on the plan. The plan does not show the required number of individual parking spaces by use. There's no truck loading or unloading areas. And it is significant. I remember from Mr. Boyd's application to the DRI, he mentioned 284 trips from the previous rezoning. He said half of those, that would be 142 truck trips. And if you have to have, in addition to your parking requirements, if you have a structure constructed for industry, you have to provide a space for trucks to load and unload, and they have to have access to a public alley or a street. Now I need the plan cards. The location of all driveways must be shown on the plan. This development plan does not have driveway access to the proposed portable rock crushing plant through the heavy industrial district. The driveway access shown is through an adjacent tract, which is zoned light industrial, which is not even included as part of this development plan. You're only considering the 152-acre tract. This is not part of this plan, so this is not valid. Our attorney, Frank Jenkins, has advised us that if the access driveway shown on this plan is used for any heavy industrial purposes, it cannot go through a light industrial tract. But remember, this 45-acre tract is not even part of this development plan that you're considering, so there is absolutely no valid driveway access to this site, nor any street access to the 151.96-acre site, because this is Norfolk Southern Railway. And that's the reason why the plan does not show the required 50-foot front building setback, is because there is no street There is no street adjacent to this property. The development plan, therefore, before you is invalid and does not meet the city's requirements for approval. While this is all very important, frankly, they simply cannot legally file a development plan for approval because the entire property is under a conservation use program covenant, which is filed with the clerk of the Superior Court of Douglas County with the state of Georgia, which does not allow it to be developed. It is a legally binding agreement enforceable by law, so they have given up their unfettered use and right to their property for a conservation use in order to receive a significant tax break. Likewise, you would be violating your own ordinances if you approve it, because your ordinance in section 1.02.03, which is titled Intent Relative to Private Property Agreements, says, this development code is not intended to repeal, abrogate, or impair any valid easement, covenant, or deed restriction duly recorded with the clerk of the Superior Court to the extent such easement, covenant, or deed restriction is more restrictive than the requirements imposed by this development code. In fact, yes, thank you, yes. Mr. Boyd, in his petition he passed out with the previous rezoning, stated, currently the property we anticipate buying is held in a conservation tax category. This simply means the landowner promises not to develop the property over a 10-year period. It's not only promises, he's sworn under oath not to develop it. In summary, these are all public records, and they're on file at the courthouse, and they've also submitted them to you in their tax documents. In summary, we have retained Frank Jenkins as our legal counsel. Under his advisement, we respectfully request that you deny the submitted development plan for a portable rock crushing plant for the following reasons. The plan does not meet the requirements of the SIC Code 32 or 3295 under which it was filed. The development plan does not meet the City of Douglasville's requirements for approval, and the property is under a conservation use program covenant. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Is there any question for these individuals of council prior to moving on to the next? If not, is there anyone else here that would like to speak concerning this in opposition? Please remember, if you would, to state your name and address for the record. Thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is David Ye, and my address is 6830 North Baggett Road. Madam Mayor and council members, it's glad to be here again after a whole year. Councilmember Miller, I'd like to address your a question about the arbitrary and capricious statement that the notice was, because it's kind of relevant to what I'm going to say. As a first-year law student would know that use by right, basically a municipality cannot deny a use by right usage unless it's fairly compensated. You have to go through a very sort of complicated Fifth Amendment taking and seizure analysis that, as a first year you would do. But then more to my point is the special use permit, where the standard in state of Georgia is held by the Supreme Court, says that as long as you have some light of evidence supporting your decision to deny a special use permit, there's really, the Supreme Court will uphold that decision. And the reason why I'm trying to get back to the special use permit is because, as Mr. Boyd sort of hinted in his presentation before, this application for his use of this portable rock crushing plant is basically just beginning to something that might become bigger in the future. I mean, I'm not Elon Musk. I don't look 100 years, 200 years down the road, but I do look 10, 20 years down the road, or even 5 years. And what it suggests to me is that what he's trying to do is lessen the burden and the evidence of disruption that it would cause because of the standard standard of review set in your Douglasville ordinance for processing and reviewing the special use permit. One of them would be, one major one, which we have constantly been mentioning is the adverse effects that this special use would bring, and also the burdensome use of public facilities that this use would bring as well. And the reason why I bring that up is before we have always been mentioning and trying to stress the fact that the dust and the pollution and also the traffic that it'll bring, a quarry would bring. And by putting this portable rock plant in place, he sort of mitigates the fact that there would be the change due to the between a rock quarry in the future versus the use that he's going to be approved of right now is not going to be that much substantially different. Therefore, your evidence to support your decision in the future would be weaker than it would have been when he initially submitted the application for a special use permit. And so I'd like you to consider that for not only this application, but also for the future. That's why I would like you to really consider removing mining and quarrying as a special use in your own ordinance in your future when you for amendment. Because I don't think anybody here would agree that having a quarry or mining operation within the city of Douglasville is something that we were going to see in the future. Therefore, there's no need for that to be on our ordinance anymore. And so if you want to alleviate having the problem of coming back to the same issue again, we need to do something to change it now so we don't have this headache of having to go through this and this type of assessment, unnecessary assessment. I mean, I understand that, you know, people I talk to who have been residing in Douglas County knows that Johnny Blankenship is a pretty good guy. But I don't see how a pretty good guy would be willing to put a portable rock facility or something like that in the future. So I just encourage you to look down to the future, what might happen once you, not only when you allow this plant to operate, but without the change of the ordinance by removing quarrying and mining in your permitted use, special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any question of council at this moment?
How much time left for the
4 minutes left for those wanting to speak in opposition. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition concerning this application? If so, please come forward.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nathan Allen Teal. I reside at 2204 South Flat Rock Road. I'm a longtime life resident of Douglas County. I would like to thank the council members and Madam Mayor for considering our side too as well. He has stated that if the quarrying would not be part of this for right now, but he has submitted per the zoning that he is able to put in a portable rock crushing facility at that location. He also stated if the economics were better after 10 years, that he would look into that future. Well, he would have more of a ground because he would be vested and have his vested rights in the land, therefore. He also said that he has basically 10 to 11 acres for this. Now, is he purchasing only the 10 or 11 acres? Is it going to be replotted, or is the tract going to be separated? Or are y'all going to extend or put a limit to a maximum buffer that he can use on this land for the zoning and the right-of-way on the road? I understand that he does not have road right-of-way for this development. But say the economics are better, say 2 or 3 years down the road, are we going to revisit this again? Because in my eyes, if there's a company across the street already selling aggregates or stone, and there are quite a few. There's stoneworks down the road closer to Hunter Park. If they are going to try to say that they're going to offer more of a sale-based product or make it more economically feasible for the consumer, so be it. But it sounds to me like they were trying to get their foothold and a threshold in the door for the quarry that they proposed to you last year. That has nothing to do with this, but I do want to bring this up to the fact that the quarrying was shot down back in 99 and 2000. I bought my property knowing that. So Frank Jenkins does represent the concerned citizens of Douglas County. If this were to go on any further,
and he does go into quarrying later on, he will be representing me because the zoning ordinances weren't upheld and it wasn't changed or mandated. I feel like I am a voice here for a lot of the homeowners that live in the area. There are a lot of people who have bought new homes there. We need to have a distinction between light industrial, heavy industrial, and residential. I would like to conservatively and respectfully ask that you deny his proposed portable rock quarry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Is there anyone else that would like to speak concerning this matter in opposition to this development plan? Okay. Then we will go back to Mr. Dillard. Mr. Dillard, if you'd like to come forward and use the balance of your time for rebuttal. What is that amount of time, ladies? 10 minutes.
10 minutes. I doubt we'll take 10 minutes. Just, I know y'all are just taking a little bit more time than we noted. I'm going to call on Darrell to talk about this plan. As I understand it, and he's here to answer any questions, this is a concept plan. This is a development plan. We intend to fully comply with every ordinance that's on the books relative to stream buffers, et cetera. And, you know, and we run into this a lot because you've got conditions of zoning, you've got development codes, and you've got site plans that are made a part of the zoning. It's very important to know that this is a site plan that's a concept of what we want to do. It is not a variance request, and it is not asking for you to make some special exception for this property. If this property is in a conservation easement of some sort, you know, pull it out. It can be done. If it's got stream buffers of 25, which is state, 50 or 75, which is the city of Douglasville, we got to comply with that. We do that as a part of the land disturbance permit process. And we don't go to the LDP process until you approve the concept of what we're asking to do. So we're not trying to get around not doing what your code says. As a matter of fact, we have been using a fine-tooth comb to be sure that we don't fail to comply with all of your codes and ordinances. And at this point, we think this development plan satisfies that. And your approval doesn't give us carte blanche to violate the streams or violate the environmental regulations that you've got in place or any of that. It doesn't do that at all. What it does is says, we recognize this as a permitted use. This property owner has the right to use this property for this use. And so be it, we're going to approve it, but Mr. Property Owner, you've also got to come forward with a land disturbance permit that meets the development code as well. Now let's talk about this discussion about Granite. Your ordinance, Major Group 32, does not term Granite. It says stone. I grew up in Decatur, stone's throw from Stone Mountain. We had stone cutters that were cutting the granite on the Venable property in Stone Mountain. We've had any number of granite quarry. Mr. Jenkins and I have tried these cases all over the state. We've got any number of these types of deals. When you say stone, you don't say diamonds, you don't say emeralds, you don't say shale, or that. It's not defined. Stone is a generic term that you've used in your ordinance, and whether it's granite or cement or gravel or quartz or shale, it's stone. And whatever that product is, we think under your definition, it's a permitted use as a matter of right in the heavy industrial district. Now, Section 3295 goes to great lengths to talk about a mining operation, what you can do with a mining operation, and what you can do if you don't have a mining operation. And the first sentence says, establishments operating without a mine or quarry and primarily engaged in the crushing, grinding, pulverizing, or otherwise preparing clay, ceramic, refractory, minerals, and miscellaneous non-metallic minerals, except fuels. The law of Georgia, Cherokee versus Martin, says that when you're interpreting local ordinances or codes, you've got to give them their reasonable definition, what their reasonable interpretation might be. You can't make an interpretation that is so restrictive that it takes away the natural common sense approach of what those words mean. And it's very important that local governments under Georgia law are to work with a property owner to seek the highest and best use of their property. That's Flynn versus DeKalb County. To seek the highest and best use of the property without that property owner having to anticipate and struggle with any and every conceivable option that might be out there. We're supposed to work together to allow us to use our property in a lawful way, in an environmentally sensitive way, in accordance with your ordinances and what you want to do, and to provide a benefit for all of us, taxes, income, whatever, and to do it in a way that doesn't violate or infringe on our neighbors, to do it in such a way that we're allowed to protect our right. This is a very valuable asset, and you don't want to take that away from this property owner to the expense of any of our neighbors, and we don't want that either. We believe and we know, because we've seen these operations throughout the country, we know and we can believe that we can operate this facility as a crusher in accordance with your codes, in accordance with your reasonable interpretation, in an environmentally sensitive way, and in such a way that doesn't adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare of Douglasville. So we ask that you approve it. We appreciate the time that you've taken tonight to listen to us, and we're still here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Miller.
Madam Mayor.
Is there anyone that has any final questions? Counsel, Madam Mayor? Yes, Mr. Watts, go
Just
ahead.
one real quick one. I just was wondering how you respond to Ms. Johnson's contention that the property is, I forget how she put it, but it's under a conservation.
Conservation
Yes,
covenant,
sir.
yeah. I didn't check the title on this. I don't know about that. I have had experiences, though, once you put it in a covenant, I think it's a 10-year program, you know, you leave it in there for 10 years. If you take it out before then, you got to pay for it. Okay, so whatever we got to do, we'll do to do that. But the other important thing too as well is that you've got buffer requirements and stream protections and environmental stuff, and the state mining guys have also got restrictions. This thing is a very, as Bart said, this is a highly regulated industry from an environmental standpoint. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. One of the other items that Ms. Johnson brought up was the access drive that crosses a property that's light industrial. Is it your, do you disagree that the trucks bringing product in to be crushed and then the final product coming out, crossing that light industrial, constitutes a heavy industrial use on light industrial property?
Well, we've got to get to our property, and we've got to get to it in a proper way. I don't think you want to be in a position of taking that access away from us. I would disagree that if you look at the uses on light industrial and you look at the uses in heavy industrial, the same vehicles can access and serve both uses, both variety of uses. So I think when you look at the comparison of what we can do with the property today, the many varied uses that we can do in the truck traffic generated under the DRI, this was in the previous deal, with 5 or 6 employees, traffic's going to be little or nothing compared to what we could do if we used it for other permitted uses under the heavy industrial.
I'd like city staff to get back to us by Monday on
And
their opinion
we'll be
on
more
that.
than happy to work on that.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, it's
Mr.
more of
Miller.
a comment than a question. You know, we've been in this situation before on a site plan issue, and staff was wrong, and we checked it, and then we did the right thing with it. I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. I want to make sure that we are avoiding unnecessary lawsuits. So I would ask, you know, I'd like to hear, I don't want to belabor this meeting, but I'd like to hear from staff attorney and Mr. Ruffin on Monday. I think Ms. Johnson's made some good points. I'm a lawyer. I can't tell you the law on it right here. So I'd like to understand and maybe understand her points as a position from Mr. Ruffin and staff attorney on Monday.
And if it's permissible, we'd like to respond to that as well. If that's okay, we've got it transcribed here. I think we can address those issues.
Thank you.
I'd like to point out too that we do have frontage on North Baggett, so we could possibly bring our trucks in and out of there without coming off of West Strickland. But those residents probably would rather come off of West Strickland.
Thank you for that observation. Anyone else? Okay, we will take this item up and we'll take into consideration Mr. Miller's suggestion. I think it's a great suggestion. We do need to hear from city staff and be updated. We're not perfect by any means, so we would like to review that. Thank you all for being here. And I believe that is all that we have tonight. Madam Mayor, under Planning and Development, I hope it's enough. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Did a great job in handling that item, Mr. Chairman. So we'll give a recess for a couple of minutes so that we'll be able to hear the rest of the council agenda while the citizens leave. Yes, sir.
Could I suggest that you ask them if they would please to convene outside so we can finish our meeting?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And the citizens, if you don't mind, kind of expeditiously moving along so that we can continue our agenda. We still have several items that we need to take care of tonight. We appreciate your participation and your care in the process. Okay, now that it has gotten quieter, we will move on to agenda item number 8, Parks and Recreation Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight under Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. Finance Committee, chaired by Councilmember Mark Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Finance Committee, we have one item. That's authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with the Douglasville Convention and Visitors Bureau Incorporated for promotion of tourism, conference, and trade shows in consideration for the city's payment of a portion of the 8% hotel motel excise tax to be collected by the city during the city's fiscal year 2018-2019. Ms. Hampton, who'd be handling that for us?
I can be brief. We will discuss this further on Monday night in committee meetings, but essentially this item will allow us to be in compliance with the Georgia Department of Community Affairs and our hotel motel tax collection.
As to proper use of those funds and how we have to, I think you had mentioned have agreements between the two.
That is
written
correct.
Agreements, and that's basically what this entails?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
that's correct.
Any question or comment of council? We'll take it up on Monday night then. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all that we have under finance.
Thank you so much, Mr. Finance Chair. We'll move on to item 10, Information and Technology Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no items under information technology at this time.
Thank you, sir. Maintenance and Sanitation Committee, that's chaired by Councilmember Mike Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 3 items tonight. A is to authorize the mayor to sign a planned maintenance agreement with Cummings Incorporated for maintenance on the generator at the Public Safety and Municipal Court building. I believe Mr. Roberts is going to address that issue with us.
Yes, thank you. Greg Roberts, Director of the Maintenance and Sanitation Department for the City of Douglasville. We can be reached at sanitation@douglasvillega.gov or 770-920-3005. We are quick to respond, I promise. If we're not, let me know. This is for the generator at the Public Safety or the Police Department facility, and this is just a standard agreement, maintenance agreement for them to keep it operational. There's just a number of things that have to happen 2 or 3 times a year. They come out and start it up. They check the fuel. It does have backup fuel, diesel fuel in it, so they check the content, put the proper additives in it. And so we've had this ever since the facility opened.
Any questions from Mayor or Council? Any concerns from Mayor or Council? If not, I'd appreciate the Council's consideration to place this on the consent agenda for Monday night. Thank you. We'll move on to our second item, which is authorize the city staff to advertise a request for qualifications for design and construction of a new city maintenance and sanitation facility using the construction manager at-risk delivery method. Mr. Roberts, is that you?
I'll speak to it, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
We're going to talk about it more on Monday night, but request for qualifications is a longer procedure than you're used to doing for bidding out, and I'll explain the steps to you on Monday night.
Okay, we will refrain from any sidestep of that. Our third item, Madam Mayor, is to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with ISES Corporation for Facility Condition Assessment of Services. You switched it up on me, Ms. Jackson.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Chelsea Jackson, 6695 Church Street. Before you on your attachments, you have a facilities condition assessment agreement of 20 of the 31 public facilities in the name of the city. This will be a little over 244,000 square feet that will be in the facilities assessment. With this assessment, it improves the capital planning efforts as well as the building maintenance to assist with our maintenance department with repairs and maintenance services throughout the years. It also helps increase the lifespan of our facilities as well as decrease the operating costs by limiting those surprise maintenance repairs that we do have sometimes. As well as this agreement, it includes software that we'll be able to use throughout the years to make sure that we maintain those facilities.
Okay, from my understanding and conversations with Mr. Roberts, I believe this is going to centralize the maintenance, put it on a schedule, and avoid unexpected budget items. So I think it's appropriate. Are there any questions from Mayor or Council? Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did have a question, Ms. Jackson. How long is the agreement for, the facilities agreement for?
So the agreement itself, it can, it'll be multi-year because we will be using their software over the years, the actual assessment of the 20 buildings, and we will come back and do the remaining buildings as well. That assessment for the first 20 buildings will be complete on August 15th, hopefully. So,
okay, and then suspense date for the facilities. Is there going to be like a checklist that, you know, these buildings are more severe, or you need, you know, 5 or more severe than the other 10, yes, or something like that, and that we should have a schedule to make repairs or whatever? And is that what that?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. It will. Over a 10-year lifespan, it'll put those facilities in different categories that shows that needs the immediate attention and those that are in good condition.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Adams?
Ms. Jackson, just how did we go about choosing which 20 to begin with, and why did we start with 20 rather than with all? Is there a reason for that?
Just First reason, budgetary reasons, as well as this facility will be in the second part. This facility is about $146,000 by itself, so we decided to do a few of the smaller buildings first, which equaled out to $244,000, and then from there, because the pricing is based on square footage, so we decided to just split them as based on square footage rather than.
Then I would
just
assume we would be looking at the older buildings first, since they would be the ones that would probably be in need of more immediate attention.
Yes.
Leaving this newest building for the second part.
Yes, sir.
Is
The
that
only
right?
newer building on the first part is the public safety building, and then the newer buildings, like you said, are on the second phase of it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller? You look pensive down there. Oh, Ms. Hampton, I'm sorry.
Thinking.
Quick question, how did we choose this firm? Was this competitively bid, this?
So this will go under your special purchasing methods. ISES is actually the only company in the state that does solely facility management. Other companies such as Jacobs Engineering, they do this kind of facilities maintenance assessments, but this is the one who solely does only facility maintenance agreements, and I also do organizational needs for facility maintenance departments as well.
Did we negotiate the fee with them?
This was based on requests for qualifications. So when I originally sent it to Jacobs Engineering as well as ISES. So when it first came into two separate packages. The first package was the qualifications, so we evaluated that. And then once we chose from that, that's when you open up the pricing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Miss Hampton, sorry.
The only other thing I will add, Mr. Chairman, is that to Councilman Miller T's point, this reference came from another city, the city of Roswell. There are not many companies, as Ms. Jackson said, that do this type of assessment for local governments. What this would do is help us for our 5-year capital improvement plan. As you all know, that was one of your goals that you set 2 years ago, was to have a true capital improvement plan. And in order for us to know what items that we need to place in our facilities, we need to make certain that we have a true assessment of those. The other point to add is the reason why the public safety building was added and rather not this building, because there are very sophisticated units on the public safety building that come with a huge ticket item. So that building is slightly older than this building, and if those items were to go out without us knowing, that is something that we financially need to be prepared for sooner rather than later.
We've had to deal with that before, if I recall correctly.
That is correct.
So essentially, this is going to be more efficient, and there's essentially only one company in the state that does this type of work. Is that correct?
Correct. That solely does this type of work.
And we were referred by another city.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments, concerns by mayor or council? Okay. I think we've asked a lot of questions here. We may have more, but if you do think there will be more, then just deny my my motion to place this on the consent agenda for Monday night. Okay. Madam Mayor, that's all we have tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Transportation Committee. The Vice Chair is Councilmember Miller M.
I thought I was going to get off light tonight.
Oh, it's you again.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Transportation Committee, we have 3 items. Authorize the mayor to sign a change order number 1 to the city's agreement of April 18th, 2018 with Jackson Paving Company Incorporated to add 220,000 gallons of bituminous, did I say that right, Mr. Roberts?
Bituminous.
That's a nice word.
Bituminous, thank you. Tack coat to the scope of work for the city's 2018 SPLOS paving project. Mr. Roberts.
Bituminous tack coat is what most of us call tar. You're driving down the road and I got tar on my car. It's getting late. But anyway, so this was an oversight by myself and also our engineering firm on the bid that was put out. So it's not something that's been given a privilege to one contractor. No contractor bid on bituminous coat. It was not on the bid sheet. and we knew it a little bit late in the game, and it's a small component of the overall bid of a project or asphalt, because it's the liquid asphalt tar that basically glues the two together. It's a tackifier, and so it was just an oversight on our part, so I have to take the responsibility for that, but it is a small component. This is a fairly high estimate on the tack coat, so the dollar figure will probably be less than that, so it does not affect the overall cost of that project by a huge percentage.
Questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Adams.
Mr. Roberts, having said that, would there be any reasonable reason why you would bid just that portion, just the tack coat portion of it, as to competition, when in fact there would be one specific company we've already traded with to do the work, and then you go and bid this part of it to another company, and you then have to work with two? That would not make any sense at all, would it?
You couldn't bid it to another company because
they're not going to just provide us with that.
No,
because that means there'd have to be two sets of equipment.
We cannot do the top coat asphalt to the, because it's an asphalt mill and inlay.
Correct.
And so when you mill that asphalt coat off, you have to have this tack coat, this tar, to tack the two
able to
together.
have the other asphalt tack
Literally
to
tack.
it.
You're tacking it together.
Yes. That's the reason for my comment. I want to make sure that our audience understands that this is not something that is an add-on, as in sometimes you have bids and then you have change orders that your original bid then was not necessarily legitimate, knowing that you would be doing these types of change orders. But this is not a situation like that, which we've discussed. But it would not make sense or would not be feasible to have someone else bid this. We already have the contractor to do the work. This is just a component that has to be included that was not.
Yeah, and we're treating it as a change order, as any other change order. I mean, I could come to you with another change order on this project for some things that we don't know. We may get out there in the field and have to do something in the field, so we don't always know what we're going to get into. Some of the roads on that 58 list are a little bit older. They're in generally good condition, but they're older. And so, for example, Councilmember Watt's neighborhood, those streets have been paved. They were installed 30 years ago. Most of them were about 30 years ago. And so when you look at it from that point of view, they're extremely good streets. But when you start removing some of that asphalt off, because our requirements and our ordinance wasn't quite what it is now. And so if you go out there on some of the streets and you mill off 2 inches, you may hit rock. And so I don't know what I might have to come back to you with on any of these projects that we'll do over the next couple of years, but I can just about assure you there'll be a few change orders here and there, but I think I've always tried to have a good record of not coming back to you for a lot, but this one here is, it's solely on me. I just didn't pay attention that the tack coat wasn't on there. It's always a part of the bid item, and it just wasn't on there. It's usually bid as a lump sum.
Point taken. I just want to make sure that the reason that it would automatically come from Jackson is because Jackson is the contractor that's already been awarded the contract to do the work, and
Yes,
this
sir.
is an integral part of that work.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
And just to add to that, if we were even able to build it or bid it out, the cost would be much more because of setup and movement of equipment and whatnot. Councilman Miller.
Your name. I just want to clarify a tiny technical thing. The resolution calls for 220,000 gallons of bituminous tack, and the contract states 22,000 gallons. So that's an order of 10. I think we might want to figure out which one is correct.
Okay.
If we're expecting 220,000, we only get 20.
I can tell you this is a high estimate, just so we don't have to come back. But I will, we'll get that squared away before Monday.
Okay, there's a zero missing in there somewhere, or added, one or the other.
Madam Mayor, Ms. Roberts, which is it? Do we know?
I mean, we have
how
to
much
have
it's
these.
gonna be?
We have to have these in agreement. Actually.
It'll be changed, we'll have it corrected Monday night. Whatever's in, we'll have it corrected Monday night.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
Thank you. It's okay, Mr. Vice Chair. This is, Mr. Roberts, a sidebar issue, but it still it relates to the 2018 SPLOST paving project. For WSA, Brian in engineering and Chip in maintenance talked to me about Rolling Hills and Chapel Hill Farms, and so they wanted an estimated time. We have to put a water line, and they didn't want the city to repave those streets and then WSA go in and tear the streets back up to put a culvert for Chapel Hill Farms and then a water line for Rolling Hills. So was there a timeline? Has Jackson Paving given us the streets in priority and a timeline, or we haven't gotten that far yet?
I've already met with them. I met with them
Okay.
on Monday, and we've squared them away. And I'm not sure about Chapel Farms.
Yes, sir.
What is,
Chapel Hill
I can get
Farms.
with you after the meeting.
Okay, but you did meet with them, so.
But, yeah, there were 3 streets that they asked me about, and
Mhm.
I have mentioned all of them to them. It was Paul Street, Eric Lane, and Spring Street.
Okay.
And those are 3 that they need to do some of the sewer boring.
Yes, sir.
And restore some old water service lines.
Mhm.
And so right now I have a tentative date for Spring Street, putting it toward the end of the project. So hopefully they can get their work. They're going to try to expedite Spring Street.
Yeah, at the summer, to try to get it done before the summer.
That's right. And I'm also working on a tentative schedule. I've already given it to the contractor for him to get back to me to see if the timeline I have put on it. I have timed the contract out all the way through the summer into
Yes,
fall, but I'm waiting on his response. And so hopefully he and I will be able to work that out tomorrow.
Okay, so I'll have to talk with you after to get the schedule, so the citizens are asking me too for like landscaping and all kinds of stuff. Where's my street on the list? So, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, we'll leave that on the agenda and address those issues on Monday. Before I do that, any other questions or comments, concerns from council or mayor, Madam Mayor? All right, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Are you just going to stay out? Yeah, you're going to stay out there.
I can sit down if you want me to.
No. Madam Mayor, our second item is authorize city staff to advertise for bids on construction of roadway improvements to Colquitt Drive. Mr. Roberts?
This is a Colquitt Terrace off of Colquitt Street that we've talked about a few times this year. And if you remember a couple of council rounds ago, we had given permission to AECom to proceed with some new drawings and plans, and I believe you have a copy of that there. We are well within the budget that I had provided to you several months ago, back last summer and fall, and so we're quite a bit below that estimate. We're going with a concrete drive road, and so there are some utility work that will have to be handled, and I have talked with the WSA as well. Steve Tiedemann, that I believe you met a couple of months ago with the AECom, is already on board with us, and he'll be spearheading this project. He's already communicating with the utilities such as Georgia Power and AGL to make sure that we're in good shape for the properties out there. And we would just like to go ahead and put this out to bid and hopefully have work commencing within 8 to 12 weeks.
I know we've handled this several times in committee meetings, reviewing that. Any other questions or comments from council or Madam Mayor? Councilman Davis?
Yes, sir. Finally, we get this. Thank you. Finally. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If it pleases the council and Madam Mayor, I'd like to add this to the consent agenda for Monday night. All right, we have one final item, that is authorize the mayor to sign a contract with On-Site Paving, Seal Coating, and Maintenance LLC for 1,500 square yards of paving near the entrance to Braylon Manor. Mr. Roberts.
Yes, as some of you actually may not be aware of this, but if you're familiar with West Strickland Street and where old Cedar Mountain Road used to intersect there years ago, it went all the way through and behind the Douglas County Road Department barn and came back and met Chicago Avenue. In fact, that's the point where Chicago Avenue turns into Cedar Mountain Road. but now that's, for a period of time, it wasn't a through street. Now it's a through street again, although I don't know that some people want it to be. But anyway, the Braylon Manor subdivision has been built slightly off of that old road, and there is a section of it that's probably, I don't know, a few hundred feet. I wanted to say 800 feet, but I'm probably wrong. But it's that initial part where you pass the Cedar Place subdivision on the old Cedar Mountain Road, and there's just a few hundred feet there as you're going toward Braylon Manor, and that is our responsibility. For those of you that, the fence there, we installed the fence there, so that's a part of the old right-of-way of Cedar Mountain Road in the city of Douglasville. So one of the reasons that on-site paving is definitely my recommendation. So D.R. Horton is the contractor at Braylon Manor, and they did a fairly exhaustive bid process for the contractor to come in there and do the roads for them, and we're inspecting them between my department and Mr. Mettler's department. And they had chosen on-site paving, and so I had met with on-site paving. They provided us a price. There's some benefit for them to do all of the work in Braylon Manor and then to come on out of their entrance and do the work on our part of Cedar Mountain Road, and that way we have a single pull of asphalt, if that makes sense. If we come back a month later, it just won't ever look the same, and so our intent is that one contractor would do it, and I believe we'd just get a better job if one contractor handles it.
Any questions or concerns? Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Mr. Roberts, does this include bituminous tack coat?
Yes, it would.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, this is a a fee of and their price is $47,640. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think Mr. Councilmember T. Miller was disappointed that you beat him to it.
Greg, or Ms. Roberts, I appreciate you taking me out there and showing. I think it makes absolute sense. We're not going to get a fair estimate from somebody else bringing other equipment in to redo it, and so I believe economically it's the most economical approach to the situation. Any other questions or concerns from council, Madam Mayor? If it pleases the council, I'd like to add this to the consent agenda for Monday night. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all we have for the Transportation Committee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chair. We'll move on to Personnel and Organization Committee. That's chaired by Mayor Pro Tem Richard Siegel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no items at this time, but we will need an executive session to discuss personnel matters, and I'll make the motion at the appropriate time. That's all I have right now.
Thank you, sir. Duly noted. Item 14, Ordinance and Intergovernmental Committee, chaired by Councilmember Michael Miller.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no items tonight.
Thank you, sir. Education and Training Committee, chaired by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
No items at this time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Communications Committee, chaired also by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
No items at this time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other business to come before council tonight from council members? I did have one executive director, I put you on the spot, Chris Humphreys, if you don't mind coming forward. I had a question from a council member about the tour tomorrow. I know it's from 9 to 2 with the Development Authority. And, pardon me? Oh, we got an email while we were in committee with all logistics. I didn't see. I was in committee. Okay, Mr. Humphreys, please give us your name and address, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, but you're so good. You speak great extemporaneously, so go ahead.
No problem. Chris Pumphrey, 8512 Bowden Street, Douglasville. Actually am here tonight on behalf of the chamber. This is part of my chamber board duty to attend the council meeting, but I just happened to pick a very interesting night to be here.
Yes, sir.
So, yes, so we actually sent an email. We sent it late and realized it at the last minute that because we've been preparing for tomorrow all day today.
Yes,
and
sir.
the question was, did we send the email? I was like, oh, no, we didn't. So right at about 5:15, I think the email went out, just kind of talking about logistics for tomorrow. The intent really here is for everyone in the community. We've invited City Council, Board of Commissioners, Board of Education, Development Authority boards, and Chamber Board, so that the leadership can be familiar with what's happening in the community. I know a lot of times we hear announcements, things like tech boxes, which was an interesting thing I heard tonight, about development happening in our area. So we're going to do kind of a central and east tour tomorrow. We'll start at our office. We'll have a bus there, a comfortable bus for everyone. I think we have about 35 that are registered to attend. We'll have coffee, donuts, and all that good stuff for everyone. And then we'll do the tour. It's an opportunity to get familiar with what's happening from a planning perspective, from a development perspective. We'll tour one of the industries and also have an opportunity to break bread and have lunch with some industry leaders as well in that area. We'll also get a chance to meet the new park ranger at Sweetwater Creek State Park and be able to talk about the great things that are happening there. Our second tour will be later this fall, and we'll do kind of central and then headed west. So looking forward to having all of those who can attend. Looking forward to being there with you.
And it ends at 2?
Yeah, our target is to have everyone back to our office by 2 o'clock.
All right, I need to
County
get on
administrator
the
is holding me to it too. So.
I know, I need to get on the road and go to Statesboro.
Yes.
Okay. It's a Friday.
If anyone needs to leave early, we'll make sure we'll provide arrangements to get you out and back over here.
Are we leaving at 9 o'clock, or is that just a target time?
So it'll be, we asked everybody to be there at 9. The target time to leave is 9:15, just to have you opportunity to get coffee and donuts or whatever before we head out.
Will there be a stop at Mercer University?
Lunch will be at Mercer, which will also be in conjunction with the first Food Truck Fridays. Mm-hmm. So that'll be happening starting tomorrow as well. So you'll be able to pick your food truck. Lunch is on us. Be able to pick your food truck, and then we'll be able to go inside of Mercer, and that's where we'll be able to meet with a lot of the industry leaders as well.
Humphrey, what is the dress code? I mean, you've suggested closed-toed shoes. Is there any other requirement?
The only reason the closed-toe shoes was for the tour itself, the tour of Medline.
Yes.
But other than that, if you want to wear your jeans and a polo shirt, more than welcome to do that. No suits, please, or ties.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Mr. Humphries. I apologize again for putting you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other business to come before council tonight? Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, some of us had the distinct pleasure and opportunity to have a mock city council meeting on Friday for second graders from 3 of our elementary schools. And it was loud, but we had a blast, and we appreciate them coming to visit with several of the city departments to learn what we do here, and especially for us on the council to give them an example of what we do when we're here. So that was a lot of fun.
Good. Thank you for standing in my place. I was not able to attend, but I really appreciate you leading, and you owe the little kids a water park, I understand, something like that. All righty. Any other business from council members? We'll move on to item 18, City Attorney, Mr. Joel Dotson.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Chief Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Susan Littlefield.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief of Police, Chief Sparks.
Myself and the sheriff will be at Sunday Cuts Barbershop tomorrow from 6:30 to 8:30. We'll chat with the chief and the sheriff.
6:30 to 8:30, Cindy Cuts. Is that on Chapel Hill Road?
Yes, it's in the shopping plaza of LA Fitness. So, like everybody, come out if you have any questions for the sheriff and I.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Always on the run doing something. That's great.
And on Saturday at the police department?
What are you doing Saturday?
Oh, the auction. So we have a lot of several vehicles, all type of items for the city auction this Saturday. I think it starts around 9. You can drive by the police department and look at some of the items we have, or look at our Facebook page. Those items are on there. This will be our second annual auction. So come on by and bid and have a great day out there at your police department and buy some of those goods.
I know you still have Youth Against Violence Saturday.
Yeah, I'll be doing that too.
Okay.
I saw a
clone yourself.
baseball with Mickey Mantle's signature on that as one of the items being auctioned.
That's nice. Might be. Okay. Is that all you have, Chief?
Yes.
That's enough. But thank you so much, sir. I'm going to move on to City Manager, Ms. Marcia Hampton.
Yes, and for those who attended the town hall meeting for the
Was great.
Northside Master Plan, we had a huge turnout. Probably over 300 citizens were at our town hall. So thanks to those who came out. I think we got some great feedback. So the next steps will be that we will have a recap meeting in June to gather up all of that information and to do an initial report to the citizens. So I definitely thank those who came out on Monday night. Also, because we've had a few items added to the 5 o'clock meeting on Monday, we will need to start at 4:30 p.m. on Monday night in order to accommodate everything that is a follow-up from tonight. So we will start your committee meetings at 4:30. And that's all I have.
Okay. I know my councilman is over there. I don't know, you going to feed us, City Manager?
For feed, okay. Are y'all looking for dinner on Monday night?
I can't hear. I heard moans and groans. I'm just putting it out there. Okay, that's a long time. Like, what time? We missed our dinner. It's 8:30. We've been here since 5. Okay. Thank you so much, City Manager. We'll move on to comments from citizens and delegates. The floor is open now for any citizens that have endured.
Madam Mayor, if I can bring up an issue at this point. I know we suggested having more of an explanation from city staff and Mr. Ruffin and anyone else that I'm missing. I don't know if anybody took down the points that Ms. Johnson was making. I'd like to have all those points addressed so we can have answers for all those points. If they didn't get it, which I think they did, then I would suggest having, if they didn't by chance, I'd be in touch with her to get those. I'd like to have answers to a legal explanation to her impression of the legal aspects of the issue.
Sir, and
I had planned to listen to the tape,
Okay.
It'll be ready by in the morning, I'm sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Councilman Miller. Any comments from citizens and delegates? No? Okay, staff reports. We don't have any. We will open the floor for an executive session to adjourn into executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
I make a motion that we adjourn into executive session to discuss personal matters.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We will take a recess. We are adjourned.